This segment of Packard Pokes At was made possible by patrons of the show and viewers like you. Please go to patreon.com/PackardPokesAt to help support the show. Thank you. You know, the thing about the church is they like to stick their nose where it does not belong. And I think it's about time that the church starts paying their dues. And I'm not the only one behind that thought process as well. A new federal lawsuit is challenging the unconstitutional tax exemption, which allows clergy to avoid paying income tax, which kind of sucks the fact that they got this in place. This was put back into place back in 1954 when the bill's sponsor, Representative Peter Mack, made this constitutionally obnoxious argument that ministers should be rewarded for carrying on such a courageous fight against this godless and anti-religious world movement. I can't believe that kind of that's fucking bullshit. Because back at that time period in the 1950s, we were going up against the Russians because they were the godless atheists over there. So
Red Scare.
The Red Scare. That's one of the reasons why we have "In God We Trust" on our dollar bills today, because of the Red Scare. And because of all this, that's why this got passed as well. Because pastors don't have to, pay taxes, they're not allowed to, at least they're not supposed to be allowed to, have anything to say when it comes to elections or anything like that. But has that stopped them? No. And the fact is that they get to live in a house that we're paying for. You're paying for. I mean, if you're in the United States, you're paying for all the taxes that are going on this house. They live in this thing tax-free. Because of that, people like Joel Osteen and Baker and the whole rest of those fucking scam artists are living high on the hog because they're bringing in money from their followers, who, the sheeple, so they can live as wildly extravagant as they want to. But they say, hey, it's not our money. God gives us this money, which is total bullshit. Kind of your thoughts?
Well, they say it's that the problem. The real problem is just that their income is taxed differently. I think there is some tax that they pay on their income, but the housing deductions and these other deductions that they get, they're taken off of their income before it's taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And it lowers their income even more. And then they can basically get housing for next to nothing, and then they can go on and deduct their interest and their taxes and improvements and all of these other things on it, and that benefits the churches. And then today it's found that 84% of senior pastors receive housing allowance of $20,000 to $38,000 in added but not reported compensation to their base salary. So the way they structure a pastor's income in a lot of churches is to take advantage of these tax loopholes that they get. And here's what I think. I think that if we were actually able to have pastors and churches pay tax, we would see a drastic change in how churches operated. I think that I think more and more would become LLCs and would actually rent buildings out to themselves and try and dance around that.
Yeah. Now, the thing is here, though, back in 2013, we did have a small victory, although it was brief. The FFRF challenged this religious income tax exemption, and they won. U.S. District Judge Barbara B. Crabb of the Wisconsin District of Wisconsin issued a strong 43-page decision declaring unconstitutional the 1954 parish exemption that allowed the ministers of the gospel to not pay income tax on specific portions of their compensation. However, back in 2014 of November, the U.S. Court of Appeals threw out that victory, not on the merits of the case, but on the question of the standing. So I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Well, okay, I think that's because the representatives from the FFRF were not taking that deduction.
Mm-hmm.
And so because they weren't themselves taking advantage of that, I guess they thought, They had so
It's because they weren't doing it, therefore it should be legal. That doesn't
it,
make any sense.
no, they were saying that because the FFRF weren't taking advantage of that, it sounded more like sour grapes. And so since
Oh,
then,
I see.
the FFRF co-presidents Dan Barker and Annie Gaylor, I think those are the ones that we're talking about. They have since filed for those exemptions. The one of the other people from the FFRF has since passed away, but her son
Oh,
is claiming those in his stead. And so they're just trying to make it appear that, okay, we're talking about apples to apples here,
mm-hmm.
because FFRF is a nonprofit. And I'm sorry, I was trying to remember all my tax stuff, but I was never able. I only did them 1 year with H&R Block,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't do things like pastors coming in because that was a
Right.
totally different tax code. So
Yeah, I get it. When I do my own taxes, and
Mhm.
when one of the questions it asked, I had a screenshot. I don't know where it is now, but it asked me if I was a pastor, and I was like, okay, no, but it gives me an explanation on why the pastors you'd get a tax exemption on that. I was flabbergasted. I tried to find it again, but I couldn't. I didn't find it anymore after that. But the bottom line here is that the churches bring in over $700 million a year,
Yeah.
which is lost revenue to the country. $700 million.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big chunk of change. We could fund the that telescope and several more just like it for years to come.
Our reasons for doing that are very sketchy, and they should be re-examined. And it's criminal
Yeah,
to allow that.
yeah. We're letting hustlers and con men run the government, basically, or at least keep their money from the government, which they shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah,